What would you say to the person out there who's listening? And I'm sure you have a lot of clients who identify with this too. They might have the experience of tracking their food and understanding macronutrients, but they're not ready to kind of let those training wheels go yet and get to that place of what truly can be intuitive eating that is supportive of your health and helps you feel like your best self. What are just some small things that people can start to look at to see if they feel ready for that, or almost like to kind of test it out, if that makes sense?
So the first thing is you can absolutely eat normally again. You can be an intuitive eater. What if you just tried it for a day? Like just tried it on, see how it feels. You can go right back to tracking tomorrow. If your day goes normally, you eat what you normally eat, you are effectively hitting your macros without tracking, so you still feel safe on those tracks. Cool, you're ready. You're ready. If your day goes a little off kilter and you find yourself maybe overdoing it or indulging in things that you don't usually do because, oh my gosh, I don't have these parameters today, I don't have to track, like it's a free day, you're probably not ready to just cold turkey it. You can definitely do the work and get there and ease in. It's just going to take a little bit longer to improve your relationship with food. That's what I would say.
Every client I have is totally different. Some are like, they go away for the weekend and we kind of decide like, hey, don't track, like let's just practice, you know what I mean? And they're like, yeah, nope, I'm done, like I don't need to do it anymore. And then some, you kind of want to like take one little training wheel off at a time and maybe practice eating the same meals and not weighing them all out. But regardless, just give yourself some practice and continue building that evidence for yourself that I can do this.
Let's link up with Krysta on the FYX. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
What is up, FYX listeners? Welcome to our latest episode of the FYX podcast. I'm your host, Krysta Huber, and we are at episode 99. So close. We almost made it to 100. I'm really excited for episode 100 to drop because I also have a special coaching announcement to share with everybody next week. So stay tuned for that. But this is a conversation that's been also a little while in the making, like our last guest. And we are blessed with two amazing women on today's podcast for a triple threat of an interview. And that is with the Women of Alignment Athletics, which is an amazing coaching program that, for lack of a better word, is so well aligned with the philosophy and approach that we take at the Fitness Fix. So my friends, Melissa and Lexi, joined me for this podcast. Both women have incredible stories, and this conversation could have gone in so many different directions, but ultimately what you will hear is this is an episode on how to really learn what intentional eating looks like. If you are a person who has tried their hand at macros and really wants to figure out how that might be a long-term play for you, then I want you to turn the volume up for this episode, because Lexi and Melissa did a really amazing job of making some very interesting distinctions between what they refer to as intentional eating versus the more standard term in the industry, which is intuitive eating. And I thought it was really amazing the way that they kind of broke that down. And I loved this because I find so often with clients who are far along in their journeys and are thinking about, well, what does this look like? What does this healthy lifestyle actually look like long-term? Where's my exit? What's my exit strategy? And that's something we preach inside of the Fitness Fix program as our last phase. In our freedom phase, it's not about saying, hey, go do this thing by yourself and figure it out. It's, can we establish what your structure looks like depending on the season that you're in your life? At the same time, I also love having this conversation with potential new clients, because when someone asks me coming into the program, or I should say expresses to me, hey, I don't want to keep jumping from different approach to different approach. I want something that demonstrates lasting change. Well, I think this exact episode is going to give you a lot of really great insight and very specific action steps to be able to get there. So make sure you follow Melissa, follow Lexi, follow their podcast. They both have amazing individual Instagram pages, but I love their podcast as well. I was on their show not too long ago. So we're rounding out the podcast swap here, and let's just dive right into this conversation. If you like it, leave a review, shoot me a DM. Would love to hear from you guys. Definitely want some feedback on this one. We had some great feedback on our last 2 episodes, and it's just been really amazing to see how much the FYX community and the engagement inside of the Fitness FYX community has really grown in the last couple of months. But I'm going to save all that reflection for next week's episode when we hit 100. So without further ado, let's hand it over to Lexi and Melissa. Lexi, Melissa, welcome to the FYX podcast. I'm so happy to finally have you guys on. We're making this happen after a couple months of coordinating, and just can't wait for the FYX listeners to get the chance to meet both of you, learn more about your stories, learn more about alignment athletics, and all this good stuff that we're going to dive into today. But before we do, got to kick it off with our signature icebreaker question, which is, what is your go-to coffee order? So Melissa, I think you are up first.
Yes. So it's going to be pretty basic, but the basics work in all seasons. And that for me is going to be a vanilla latte with oat milk. Sometimes I get it hot. Sometimes I get it iced. Just depends, but that is my go-to.
That was going to be my follow-up question. Are you one of those girls that like you can have iced? I am iced coffee, even if it's like literally 20 degrees. Not that you live in an area that gets that cold, but.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah, love it. Lexi, what's your go-to? I know you like your fun Starbucks drinks. We were DMing about that the other day.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, is this Starbucks or like other, little trendy coffee shops? Because I have my go-tos at both, but we'll go with Starbucks because I feel like that's way more fun. I am also an iced coffee / cold brew, even when it's 20 degrees. I don't know the last time I was like, I'm going to order a hot cup of coffee.
Me either. Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, but I'm a shaken espresso gal. It's way less bitter. So I get a venti shaken espresso with 3 pumps of sugar-free vanilla and then 2 pumps of the brown sugar syrup at Starbucks. It's my favorite. And then sweet cream cold foam on top and oat milk always. So
I tried your exact order the other day, and I will attest it was great. It was delicious.
Oh, yeah.
Loved it.
I think that one that I posted was the cinnamon caramel.
Yes. And I had never had the cinnamon one. I do more of like the chocolate cold foam if I'm going to venture out into that world of cold foams and stuff. And I was like, I'll try it. Lexi said it was good. And it was a great, like, sweet little treat. Hit the spot at like 2 p.m. I loved it.
Oh, I love that so much for you. Okay. Anyways, we could do a whole podcast.
We literally could.
Orders,
and that's every time I have a guest on, we could all dive into coffee and we could talk all the things about it. But we obviously came here to talk about way more than just that. So because there are 2 of you, and because I know that you guys have come together over the last couple of years to create this amazing coaching business and awesome brand, we are going to talk all about that, but I want to get to know more of your individual stories to kind of kick this off and then see where that takes us. So that said, let's just bounce back and forth. So we'll go bounce back over to Melissa here for this first question to kick it off. And that is, who is Melissa? But instead of giving us your resume, your credentials, all those different things, tell us more specifically about why we should care about what you have to share in this episode.
All right, here we go. Hello, my name is Melissa. You should care because I have made all the mistakes that I don't want you to make in your fitness journey. And the annotated version, or abridged version, I guess, of my story would be back in 2017. I competed for the first time. After that, I really struggled with my relationship with food. I did not have a period for 3 years. Didn't really care to prioritize my health because I was just so in the bodybuilding world. So just passionately devoted to competing. And in hindsight, it feels a little off. But when I was in it, I was in it. And that's just all in the name of growth. So dealt with that, competed again in 2019, like November. And then we all know what happened a few months after that in 2020. So I spent 2020 was really like my transition into prioritizing my health, like literally everything, my gut health, my hormone health, mental health, all of it. Like I was a puffy, inflamed mess after that show. And it wasn't because I necessarily like didn't follow my protocols. It was just because my body was like very done. So since then I restored my period in 2020, really balanced out my hormones. I've gone through some gut stuff. I did an entire parasite detox last year. And now I'm kind of on the chapter of digging deeper into my gut microbiome to correct like a lot of skin issues I'm having, like mainly acne. But during the time of this recording, just got results from my test, and I'm going to be meeting with my doctor about that actually tomorrow, and we are on a good path. So all that is to say, I've been through it with all different health issues, and those issues being like very common with a lot of women that we work with and a lot of struggles I just see out in the world. And we now help clients through the same or similar things. So that's me. That's my abridged story.
Lots to unpack there, but Lexi, we're going to let you go next.
Okay. So honestly, I feel like for anyone you probably have on the podcast, Krysta, it's like, why should anyone care what they have to say? Why should they listen? And it always goes back to your experiences, right? So like Melissa with health stuff and not prioritizing her health, just prioritizing aesthetics, and our coaching brand, Alignment Athletics, is about like living your life in total alignment, right? So like just overall upgrade when it comes to your body composition, but also your health and your life. And I think that we all three of us know that when you start your fitness journey, you start to notice changes in every area of your life. Like it trickles into every area of your life. And so when I go back to my experiences, and in particular, why you should care about what I have to say, all of the, I don't even want to say mistakes, lessons I have learned have kind of been about not being so all in on physique goals, so focused on my body that other areas of my life fall to the wayside, right? So I struggled with an eating disorder for 5 or 6 years, like very seriously, was in and out of treatment centers, hospitals, things like that. And, obviously like that is all consuming. But as I started to get into fitness stuff, my eating disorder kind of like morphed, right? And it was like, I'm just going to focus on hitting my macros, changing my body, control. It was just another way of controlling my body.
Sure.
And my life was so one-dimensional. And so a lot of the lessons that I had to learn were about like, okay, like all of this health and fitness stuff, like what is the point if you don't have a life to go with it, right? And so when Melissa and I joined together, and what we really work on with clients is like, okay, how do we help you optimize your health? How do we help you live your best life while also pursuing like the body that you want, right? And like feeling confident in your skin, because you can do all of those things, but you have to be really intentional. So when it comes to me and why should you listen to what I have to say, it's like I freaking been through it. I've been anorexic, I've been bulimic for years, I've overexercised, I've had a really disordered relationship with my body, I've been the person photoshopping stuff. Like I've been through it, and now I literally have the life I always dreamed of. And I know a lot of women struggle with the same stuff either Melissa or myself have struggled with, and we want to help you through it.
Well, you guys know that I'm all about the realness element of this, and I appreciate you being candid right out of the gate. And what I think is so interesting in both of your examples, you guys have had technically different experiences, right? But they both turned into very extreme ends of the spectrum of where you could potentially go with a lot of this stuff. So what I'd love to know is, between the two of you and just your friendship and personal relationship, tell us a little bit more about the history of Alignment Athletics. Like, how did you decide, what kind of happened for the two of you to come together to be like, hey, let's create this coaching business where we can bring each of these events that we've had and learning opportunities, mistakes, representations of growth, whatever you want to call them, to the table, and now help other women navigate what is a very confusing world when it comes to health and wellness.
I can take like the first half, Lex.
Okay. I was going to say, do you want to take it away?
Yeah. Okay. So, basically I was actually in law school back in Kansas City. I graduated December 2018, knew I was not going to be a lawyer, plot twist, decided to move to San Diego, March 2019. That's like when I actually moved. I knew for years I was going to end up in California. You know, divine timing, Lexi and I become friends. I come visit, we look at apartments, we move in together. So during 2019, we're living together. I'm prepping. We're both like in our fitness eras, you know, and we would have these life talks every single night where we were like, damn, we are soul sisters, kindred spirits. Like, we very much think the same way in terms of everything that we're working on with like fitness and business and mindset and all this stuff. And so that kind of went on for a while. And then I remember specifically, I was on a plane, I think it was like August of 2019. And I always get like the best downloads on planes. And the name Alignment Athletics came to me. And I remember thinking, I don't know what that's going to be, but it's going to be something. So
Okay.
I typed it in a note on my phone and I didn't tell anyone. Then it's like Christmas time-ish. And, you know, this whole time, Lexi and I had our own businesses. So we could hear each other, like helping our clients, doing check-ins, doing Zooms. And we realized we coach in a very, very similar way. And so one night I'm sitting at the dining room table. Lexi's like in the kitchen behind the island, which we lived in a very small apartment. There was not much distance there. And so we're talking and she's like, what if we just like both coached under Alignment Athletics? And it just hit. And we're like, okay, we're going to do that. So then we like spent our time planning that out and we ended up launching March 2020. But I'm going to stop there and I'm going to let Lex pick it up.
Yeah. So, I mean, March 2020, basically we just merged. So I had run my own coaching business. I like worked corporate for like 6 months or so after college, started my business. So I think by the time Melissa and I moved in together, I'd been doing that for a couple of years. And Melissa was running hers. And basically what it came down to and why we decided to merge, which, you know, 90% of people are like, it's the stupidest thing ever to start a business with your best friend. Like, that's not going to end well. And here we are. So everyone,
we're way past the 3-year mark. So I think you guys are good.
We're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And we're still best friends. Business still exists. But, you know, the end goal that we had for all of our clients was the same, you know, and I think every woman has a different story. And just like Melissa and my backgrounds are very different, we both wanted the same things for ourselves, right? And even women who have different physique goals, some women might want to build muscle or lose fat or whatever. There's always something deeper, right? It's not the body that you want. It's not just like the self-control or the more freedom around food that you want. It's how that thing is going to make you feel, right? And that's
Amen.
really what alignment stands for. And in the first video, like our intro video that Melissa and I made, it was like, alignment is flow. Alignment is when everything feels easy and decisions are easy. And we just like went into this whole list of like how alignment feels. And that's what we want for everyone. So we work with women who have all different backgrounds, but regardless, feel out of alignment, feel like there is something more for me, or like, why am I getting in my own way when it comes to my fitness goals? And that can be someone who, very similar to Melissa's story, is like, I don't even know what's going on in my body. I don't feel like I'm in my body, and this is holding me back from the life I want. Or a lot of women are like, you know, from dieting for years, I have like my metabolism like doesn't even freaking work, or my relationship with food is awful, or I can't control myself around food at night, or whatever it may be. But the way we work in work with every client is different, right? Like everyone's protocol is different. Not everyone strictly tracks macros or exercises the same way, but our goal is to help everyone get to a place where all of the areas of their life are in alignment and they kind of like feel that inner peace and that feeling that they want to feel, and that many women chase, thinking like just changing my body is going to get me this, right? So we kind of focus on all aspects of everything and bringing that into alignment for everyone. Very long-winded, but hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'd love for you guys to just elaborate on that a little bit more in the sense of what does that look like in application? Because we could talk macros, we can talk about people's metabolisms, we can talk about the proper way to train and our opinions, right? But I think something that we all have in common with our coaching styles is really trying to help our clients on a day-to-day basis have better awareness of these deep-rooted challenges that they're facing. Like what you just said, Lexi, around why am I always getting in my own way, when you could be something I see with my clients all the time, and I'm sure you guys see this too. They are extremely successful in their careers. They're amazing moms. They're great partners. They're really great friends, sisters, everything. The consistency across the board is they're really good, myself included, I should say, at putting everybody else first and themselves last. And yet they don't recognize that they have all of these skills that they pour into other people that they can just pour back into themselves, and they will get to where they want to go. They will step into that person that they're trying to become. But I think when people hear that, especially for anybody listening out there who's maybe never worked with a coach before, what are some of those tools and principles that you incorporate inside of your program to really help women be able to do that and actually live that out on a daily basis?
I love that. Melissa, do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
You can go first.
Okay. So I think the first thing is just building the self-awareness, right? And kind of like taking note of, kind of like you said, where am I getting in my own way? What is making me feel burnt out? Where am I starting to feel resistance or resentment? You know, typically when you like are always pouring into other people, like you start to kind of have resentment towards them, even though it's like, well, did you ever like set a boundary or like ask for your needs to be met or whatever that might be? And we also really ask people to take inventory of like, okay, if you had, you know, your dream day, like, you know, you wake up, like, what would that look like? Like, how would you feel? How would you be moving your body? Like, what would you be like? Journal it all out, right? And so that might not be like a 1, 2, 3 step tool, kind of like you initially asked, but I think that that's really, really important when you start anything, to just be like, okay, what do I really want out of this? And how am I getting in my own way? Right. And then very similar to your clients' journeys, I'm sure we are there to help support you in getting from point A to point B. So, you know, whether it is that we have you kind of just like loosely tracking your food and tracking calories, or we have you more strictly tracking macros or doing meal guidelines, or just focusing on eating more whole foods, or maybe you're someone who you need to work on being more flexible with food and like allowing yourself to have the cookie or whatever it might be. We're kind of like laying out a plan to help you day to day, so you can kind of like have that like, I'm going to check this off. Like I showed up for myself in this way day to day. And, you know, they have message access, check-ins, all of that kind of stuff. And I feel like we probably don't need to get into the fitness side of things, but it's the same with like their exercise and day-to-day movement and, you know, mindset tools that we work on, day-to-day habits that we work on for every client. But I think the two biggest things are really figuring out where you want to be, figuring out where you're getting in your own way, and then really working on building that relationship with yourself. Because typically when you're always pouring into other people, or you keep getting in your own way, or, you know, you are staying in the cycle of losing the weight and then gaining it back or whatever it might be, it's not because of external circumstances as much as it may seem. It's because of your relationship with yourself. So a lot of the work that we do is mindset related, but also just very like habit related, because the more that you show up for yourself and follow through with what you say you're going to do, the more confidence you're going to have in yourself, right? So that's my piece.
And I think it actually changed. That's how you fundamentally change who you are too. I just did a podcast episode a couple weeks ago and talking about the phases inside of the Fitness Fix program, and something that I see often, especially with like pure fat loss clients and somebody really wanting to change their physique, they're in such a rush to get to their calorie deficit, even when they're seeing progress. And I think a lot of the times that can come from just like some of the information they're consuming and comparing themselves to other people, which women tend to do often. And something I really emphasized in that episode is like, okay, cool, we got there. But now you have to remember all of the action steps that you took along the way just to even arrive at this point. I always like to say to my clients, we have to earn this, right? Because if you can't show me that you can do these things on a day-to-day basis, when in this case you have more calories to work with, right? If we're going to go into that specific example of reverse dieting versus going into a calorie deficit. But more importantly, if you can't do it under those circumstances, how is it going to stick? And really looking at yourself and asking like, okay, is there something in the approach that needs to be different for me? Is there something I'm not facing and not addressing with myself? Because guess what? It's uncomfortable. And that's why we tend to go back to behaviors we had before, because they're safer, they're more familiar. And I think it can be really hard for people to spot that in themselves. And that's the benefit of having a coach and having a safe space and having the environment to be able to talk about these things and even just have this like container to recognize that that's happening to you.
Yeah. And even, going off of what you just said about like, you have to earn the results, but you also have to like, obviously maintain the habits that help you achieve those after. Like, you're not going to maintain your results with an unmaintainable approach. So, whether it is someone who wants to lose fat or build muscle or whatever it might be, we always want like the instant gratification. And it's like, if you can't continue doing what got you to that destination after you get there, you're not going to maintain it. And so that's why I think, both the Fix program and within alignment, like we're both just so big on like, isn't it better to like have fun along the way, have some balance, and still get to the result? It might take a few months longer. It might take a year longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then to maintain those results for the rest of your life, rather than having to do it all over again 10 times, And I think that that's just such an important point to bring up, that so many women, everyone listening has probably heard before, like, take the balanced approach, like, don't do the quick fix. But we all need that, like, literally drilled through our head. Like, if you can't sustain the habits that help you achieve a result, you're not going to maintain the result, and I think everyone just kind of wants to, like you said, start the diet or whatever right away. Like, don't do it. A few extra months to reverse or build the habits, like you said, and be consistent with them is nothing compared to the rest of your life,
Nothing. And I think, it's just, again, what you just said about that couple extra months, the year, whatever it is, whenever we choose a certain path, I always like to remind clients, let's say it is the, hey, let's have more fun with food. Give yourself the freedom to go ahead and have the cookie, or maybe even making the choice to actually go out to eat versus saying no. I'm sure both of you guys, whether it was in Melissa's experience and going through prepping for a show, and Lexi in your experience of feeling like you had this really, really restrictive relationship with food, even when you were trying to heal it. That's something that we have to work on and just ask ourselves, what is the consequence here? The only consequence, and I put that in quotes because I don't think it's a bad thing, is the time that it's going to take you to get to where you want to go. And if that winds up being 2 weeks longer in the grand scheme of your entire life, it is no big deal. But it's really, really hard. And I think I probably say that to clients all day, every day on repeat. It's like the number one thing I say constantly.
Yep.
Melissa, what do you think about all this?
I mean, I'm on board. I totally agree. I think a lot of the work that we do as coaches and our whole team of coaches does is being objective with the client. And that is the biggest benefit of working with a coach, because they're going to be able to spot your blind spots and call you out on where you are self-sabotaging. And this change, this transformation, it's difficult, right? Because it's unfamiliar and you have to choose differently. Your ego doesn't like that. You want to stay where things are familiar and comfortable and safe. And if you haven't gotten the results that you want yet, that is exactly why. Because like Krysta said earlier, you need to dig deeper and fundamentally change your behaviors, your thoughts, your actions, your belief systems. And like that type of work requires support. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. And I think, let's bring it more into your experience of what you've dealt with your gut health and trying to get your period back, that sort of thing. I'd love to know for you, what was your breaking point that you were like, I can't keep going down this path and I'm ready to actually just feel like myself again, or find what that should feel like, however you define it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there was like an acute situation. I think it was more of like a slow burn over time where I just realized like, okay, I have put my body through a lot and I'm not feeling so good. And even though I think what like scared me the most was I was, like I said earlier, I was following my protocols. I was properly reversing after my show. And my last show was in November of 2019. So like the beginning of November. And I went home for Thanksgiving or Christmas or both. And I was still weighing myself every day. And again, totally on point with everything. I was gaining a pound every single day for like 4 days in a row. And I kid you not, that was the last time I weighed myself, because it was beneficial for my mental health to stop weighing myself. But at the same time, I had a talk with Lexi about this. She told me like, if your body is putting on weight, it's because it needs to. And so that was kind of a shift for me. And then moving into 2020, I remember having a conversation with Lexi and another one of our friends where I realized like with tracking food, I'm just kind of going through the motions. Like I'm copy pasting my meals for breakfast and lunch. I don't finish out my day, even though I'm like logistically hitting my macros like in execution. And so I realized, okay, I don't want to track anymore. And shortly after that, that was like springtime 2020, I had been trying to get my period back on my own. And I mean, I wasn't doing anything special. I was just eating more, training less, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you need reinforcements. Yeah. So I reached out to one of our friends who is also a coach. He's really great with, competitors and women's hormonal health and all that. And so we got blood work, got supplements, had my period back within 2 months. And that was really like, once that came back, then my physical body started to really calm down, even out. I wasn't as inflamed and puffy and all of that. My mental health definitely improved. Like, despite the whole 2020 like connotation, that year was very transformative for me just because this journey was overlapping with that timeline.
Sure.
And I mean, I just haven't turned back. Like now I'm just a very, very much like an intentional eater. I am more holistic when it comes to healing. Like I'm really big on just flow and paying attention to energetics and that sort of thing. So that's like my approach now. And I would say it all stemmed back from that experience, like end of 2019, beginning of 2020.
What would I think either one of you guys could answer this question if you both want to answer it. What would you say to the person out there who's listening? And I'm sure you have a lot of clients who identify this with this too. They might have the experience of tracking their food and understanding macronutrients to a very high degree. They've been doing it for a long time, like either one of your experiences. And they're starting to feel like they're going through the motions in the exact same way you described, but they're not ready to kind of let those training wheels go yet and get to that place of what truly can be intuitive eating that is supportive of your health and helps you feel like your best self. What are just some small things that people can start to look at to see if they feel ready for that, or almost like to kind of test it out, if that makes sense? I have a lot of clients that get very nervous about this step in their journey.
Yeah. So what I would say is I remember thinking, how will I ever eat normally again? I was like, I'm in too deep. I know too much about nutrition. And that was a genuine thought in my head. And so the first thing is you can absolutely eat normally again. You can be an intuitive eater. I like to use intentional eating as a term. And so what if, this is what I would encourage you to ask yourself, if this is you, what if you just tried it for a day? Like just tried it on, see how it feels. You can go right back to tracking tomorrow. And here's where I would say the decision tree comes in. If your day goes normally, You eat what you normally eat. You know you are effectively hitting your macros without tracking, so you still feel safe on those tracks. Cool. You're ready. You're ready. If your day goes a little off kilter and you find yourself maybe overdoing it or indulging in things that you don't usually do because, oh my gosh, I don't have these parameters today. I don't have to track. Like it's a free day. You're probably not ready to just cold turkey it. You can definitely do the work and get there and ease in. It's just going to take a little bit longer to improve your relationship with food. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And I'm really happy you asked this question because it is, I know you said you just did a podcast episode about like the 4 pillars within your business, and easing into intuitive eating is like our final step in our client journey, kind of like our final pillar, right? At the end of the day. And I feel like every woman, regardless of if you consciously or like, I want to intuitively eat, no one wants to be like a grandma with their grandkids at Christmas dinner weighing out their freaking cranberry sauce. I don't know. You know what I mean? So we all want to intuitively eat, or at least have the confidence that we can. And like Melissa said, everyone can. And I genuinely am a firm believer that like you will just have a feeling when it's time. And everyone is so different. Like Melissa said, she kind of like cold turkeyed it kind of. Whereas I was someone who definitely did not. Like I competed for the last time in 2020 and like obviously reversed out of my show. I was living with my boyfriend at the time who was a professional bodybuilder. So like continued tracking, whatever. And I just kind of like eased out of it. And every client I have is totally different. Some are like, they go away for the weekend and we kind of decide like, hey, don't track, like, let's just practice. You know what I mean? And they're like, yeah, nope, I'm done. You know, like I don't need to do it anymore. And then some, you know, you kind of want to like take one little training wheel off at a time and maybe practice eating the same meals and not weighing them all out. Or Melissa mentioned this is kind of what she did, like track the first half of the day and then don't the second half of the day, or take 2 days a week off of tracking. But regardless, just give yourself some practice and continue building that evidence for yourself that I can do this, you know? And I know for myself, it was kind of like I would just take weekends off of tracking. And then it just kind of gradually got to a point where I'm like, I don't know the last time I touched a food scale or anything like that. It's been over a year now. And I'm chilling. So it's different for everyone, but I think for everyone, you just need to, like anything in life, do the thing that's a little bit scary and build evidence for yourself that I can do this. And like Melissa said, I think a lot of people are maybe going to beat themselves up and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to take a step back because I did overeat this day, or I overate at this dinner, or I find myself falling back into restrictive tendencies. And I would almost say like, you don't need to go back to tracking. Like, why does everything need to hold meaning? You know what I mean? Like It can just be a lesson. You don't like overeating doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. It can just be like, okay, like I'm just going to look at like, why did I maybe do that? Was I not being mindful? Was I just like really, really excited? Did I go into it a little bit too hungry? And how can I change that? You know, like it doesn't, I think we're so used to looking at everything through this lens of like, was it good? Was it bad? Did I do it right? Or did I do it wrong? And when it comes to intuitive eating, and I think Melissa would say this as well, Krysta, I don't know if you intuitively eat or not, but like you're always learning to do it a little bit better, especially after like I tracked macros for a decade. You know what I mean? Like I can look back to like 6 months ago and be like, wow, like I've gotten a lot better at intuitive eating. And 6 months ago, I thought I was fucking killing it. So, you know, it's just one of those things where I think if you do quote unquote mess up, take a step back and realize like you literally can't mess up. It's just food. Like it's just food. You are eating it is essential to live. Like you don't have to eat again when you're intuitively eating until you are hungry again. It's okay. And just handle the situation differently next time.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I asked this question is because, like what you mentioned about kind of that last phase of your program, this is something that's really important to me because I actually think in my own life, it was where I made mistakes with my relationship with having a coach. So now I know you guys have competed and obviously have maybe had very different dynamics in your own coaching relationships when you've worked with somebody. But for me personally, if I could look back on the times that I've had a nutrition coach in my life, and I have one right now, and I'm so glad that I do, one of the reasons why this is such an important phase, even though it's the final phase inside of the Fitness Fix program, is this is coming from my experience of anytime I worked with a coach, it would be, okay, I reached a certain goal weight or physique or whatever it was, and I'd immediately be like, oh, I don't need to work with you anymore. And I wished I had never done that, because that wound up really not allowing me to have the space to have the conversations, to just like bounce some of these ideas off of someone to figure out how to not track my food. And then I developed this very, very all or nothing kind of mindset and relationship to it. Then when other things in my personal life, as I shared on your guys' podcast, just really a lot of things happened to me at once, that it just made food tracking in particular feel so unimportant. But I now recognize that I could have had a different relationship to it. And because I could have had a different relationship to it, one of the things that I want to encourage all of our clients is like, let's actually do this together, because it might feel like something that is uncomfortable to navigate. And for me personally, like, it's just totally changed the way I look at food tracking in general, and now really push our clients to start to think about those things too, even way before they might be ready. Like, it's just practicing it as we're going through the entire process. Whether it's like, I always say to people, like, let's start with something that's so simple, in the sense that it's like, if you're going to go have some type of big ass bowl of veggies or salad or something like that, we all know if you do not track that, that is not going to be the reason why you didn't get to where you want to go. But it's just like, taking the step to do it is the comfort, and then seeing that your biofeedback's not changing in a way that you don't want it to. It's the confirmation that you need to be like, okay, cool, I can do this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I mean, any coach probably has had women who reach their goal, right? And then leave, like you said, and then come back, whether it's like a year later, right? Whether because like I lost all my progress, or like you mentioned, kind of having that all or nothing relationship with macros of like, you know, I YOLO'd, live my life, and like now I'm ready to take my fitness seriously again. And it's like, again, with alignment and why we like hold that name so closely, and it's such a huge piece of just not even our branding, but like genuinely what we do, is why can't you be like taking care of your body and prioritizing your fitness or physique goals, and also be like living your life and enjoying it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's so important, and we've all been there, where you leave the coach because you reach your goal and whatever. But I just encourage you to ask, if you are working with a coach or you've reached a body goal, is this the approach or like methodology that I want to use to maintain these results for the rest of my life? And we're literally just talking about that. But if the answer is no, like I don't want to be tracking my food, or I want to be able to be a little bit looser with things, or I want to implement different types of exercise, or whatever it might be, ask your coach to help you work on that. You know what I mean? Like, that's the next step for you, because your fitness journey literally never ends. There always is a next step. And I think both Melissa and myself, we don't have like fat loss or muscle building goals. We're eating intuitively. Like, if I looked at me 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I'd be like, I made it. I like future Lexi made it. But I'm sitting here and I'm like, there's still totally stuff that I can work on, as far as like, and am working on, as far as like my healthy habits, doing, implementing other kinds of training, like just taking more care of my internal health. You know what I mean? So just make sure you don't shoot yourself in the foot if you reach the end of a program and you're like, okay, like, but I don't want to continue doing this exact same thing for the rest of my life. Your coach or another coach can help you get to that next level.
Yeah,
100%.
totally. And one thing I was thinking that I forgot to mention earlier about like the transition to intuitive eating is, remember that through your experience tracking macros, you learned a lot, and you're not going to forget any of that just because you're not tracking something in an app. Like, you still know when you make your meals, you're going to put protein, carbs, and fats in there. You should probably get some micronutrients. You should definitely be getting some fiber. Like, you are not going to forget how to structure your meals. So just trust yourself. And I'm glad we talked about the different forms of training too, and really just like phasing out of a program and into the healthy lifestyle. Cause that is why everyone signs up. Like deep down, they want the healthy lifestyle. They want the balanced lifestyle. They want to look good, feel good, be confident, fill in all the blanks, dream life. You can have it. It doesn't have to be your dream life. That can be your real life, and I think any coaching program that doesn't have that kind of phase to prepare you for that might need some reconsidering. So you got a few great coaches here. We got a great network. Like we can always refer y'all. So just keep that in mind. If you're someone who is considering working with a coach, ask them that. Like, hey, what does like the end of the program look like? Like, how can I transition into the vision that I have for myself?
Yeah. And I love that you guys mentioned this at the very beginning around like, what is your dream day or your perfect day? I actually asked that on our coaching application. And so many times people think it's a weird question. And I'll even reiterate it to them when we have our first call. And they're like, well, what does this have to do with food? And I'm like, it has everything to do with it, because it's going to help clue me into what your priorities are, what your values are, and how we can really, yes, we might have certain approaches that are similar for people, but use these tools. Like I look at macros as just a tool. Intuitive eating is another tool, right? To be able to fit this into your lifestyle and what you actually want. That's how it's going to be something that you could see yourself continuing to do. And I think even to what you just said as well, Melissa, about like recognizing that you learned so much along the way. That's such a great reminder for anybody who's even in a working coach relationship right now to always be present. Like I say to my clients so often, when we have our food scale out and things like that, I get you're busy. I know you might be in a rush, but there's so much value in taking 3 seconds to look at the food you're weighing and be like, oh, okay, like if I were to eyeball this, like let me kind of sink this into my memory a little bit and know what it looks like, versus just going through the motions and being like, throw this in this container, throw this in that container. And like, and I get it, like we're busy, right? Like it can happen, but those are the types of nuances to how you might look at macros or look at whatever approach you're taking that can really take it to the next level for you and how it ultimately fits into your life in the long run.
Yep. And you said what I always say, and that is like tracking macros, right? Or like following a training program. Those are tools. And I think so many women forget that. I know we get a lot of ladies on one of two ends of the spectrum. One being kind of like you said, they're like not even present. They're just like so gung-ho about tracking macros, probably terrified to intuitive eat. And they're just like going through the motions and they're almost relying on it. And then there's the other side where women are like, I can't track macros. It doesn't work for me. It's too restrictive. And it's like, what if you didn't look at it as like a way of like being, if it was literally just a tool, because I will say most of the women who work with us track macros in some capacity, whether it's protein, carbs, fat, or it's like calories and protein or whatever. But it's essential if you not even like just want to maintain physical results, but also want to be a healthy human, right? Learning how to build a balanced meal that is going to keep you satiated, learning the portion sizes that your body needs, what your body responds well to versus what it doesn't. What do you feel best eating before and after you train? Things like that. Like it really can just be a tool. And I don't think it's anything that any great lifestyle coach wants anyone to need to do forever. But I think where women get stuck in either thinking this is so restrictive or becoming super reliant on it is when you're looking at it as literally just like a freaking part of your personality. Like it's not. It's literally just a way to help you understand. And I know I'm not at a point anymore where I like look at a plate of food and I'm like, this is how many macros it was. But if you ask me, I could probably
do it.
You know what I mean? Right. I could tell you. And a huge reason that Melissa and myself are able to, like she said, kind of mindfully eat, we both call it that, kind of over intuitive eating, is because like we're still very smart about what we put in our bodies. Like I'm not going to have a meal without protein. Like you're just not going to see it. You know what I mean? I am going to be hitting fiber every single day. That kind of thing. Like I'm not going to let myself undereat for days on end and I just like have that awareness. I know. So it's a tool that is going to help you find the freedom that you want and maintain the body that you feel really freaking good in.
Yeah. I love this because I feel like it really takes out some of like the mystery and elusiveness that I think a lot of people think about when they hear words of like intuitive eating or mindful eating and things like that, because we're showing you the journey of how you can get there, and you guys are living examples of what that looks like for you. And I have to say too, and ask you this question, both of you post the most amazing recipes all the time, and I can tell that you have fun with the food choices that you're making, like experimenting with a lot of flavors and things like that. How has that journey changed for you? Like, has that taken you a little bit of time to get there, especially coming from, let's give the average person who might not know this, but the background of like how stringent you could potentially be inside of competing and really being super routine with your food intake during that time?
Yeah. So I always loved like cooking and baking as a kid. Obviously, with like my eating disorder, absolutely not. And then even the whole time Melissa and I lived together, I like literally don't think I seasoned a single thing. I mean, when I was prepping and stuff, so for like, it was probably like a year and a half, I was on like a very strict meal plan. Like I literally ate the same thing every single day, whatever. But even outside of that, same thing. And it really has just probably been the past year or so that I've been having a lot of fun making recipes. And it was genuinely just because I noticed I was so indifferent about eating. And while yes, food is fuel, it's also supposed to be like a really enjoyable experience. And I just hit a point where I was like, I want eating to be fun. Like, I don't want it to just be something that I like have to do, or, you know, it almost just started to like eerie feeling of that time where I like wanted to eat other things, but I couldn't.
Sure.
So I just started having more fun seasoning my food, and I still don't take more than 5 minutes to like ever make a meal, but definitely having more fun with it, because that food is supposed to bring enjoyment. So for me, it was genuinely, I was just like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of eating the same thing for like 6 years.
I love that. What about you, Melissa?
Yeah, so I'm the opposite. I don't love cooking.
Yeah.
Melissa's like queen of microwave food, like
not
throwing
anymore,
the rice
though.
and chicken.
You just want it to be simple?
Not anymore. Because the beginning of this year, I realized, like, I was doing resolutions, and I realized that I just like had this story that like I'm not good at cooking. Like, I'm not good in the kitchen. And I decided to mindset coach myself. And so my resolution is to try one new recipe every single week. And coming from the bodybuilding background, like, you don't learn anything about cooking because you don't really want to be adding a bunch of sauces that like have extra carbs, and like, I mean, seasonings don't really have calories, but like you just are so in it. You're like, I know this hits my macros. I know that I ate this yesterday and it worked.
To make.
Yeah, like, yeah, we don't need any more decision fatigue. So you get used to eating the same things that are really, really simple. And I just don't like spending a lot of time in the kitchen. But what I have found this year with trying new recipes that are like, so I guess you could say like hearty, like things you make from scratch, and you like really combine different flavors and things you don't just intuitively know to put together. Like, you need to try recipes to learn these things. It actually is so soul nourishing. Like, there's just something energetic about it of like, I put love into this meal, you know, and it actually tastes good. Like, who knew it could be so simple? So that's where I am now. And hopefully that's like a lesson for anyone who had the same story of like, I don't like cooking. I'm not good in the kitchen. I don't like spending time in there. I get it. We're all busy, but try making a nourishing meal. Like, the recipe doesn't have to be anything crazy, but like, do more than you usually do. Try that out, because you will realize like, okay, I'm capable, and food is actually really good and can be really fun without worrying about like, oh, the seasonings or sauces that I put in here, like, I don't know how to track those. Like, it's fine. It's fine. It just kind of elevates your quality of life when you kind of dig deeper into the kitchen too.
Yeah. I asked you guys this question because I kind of had the sense that I probably fell somewhere in the middle of the spectrum between the two of you. Like, I enjoy cooking, but I don't necessarily make as much time for it. So I fall like closer to Melissa's side. And then whenever I see a lot of like Lexi's bowls and things that she throws together, I know that they're not taking you a long time. And so I think that's a really good reminder for people that this doesn't have to be complicated per se to be flavorful. And that's such a huge part of it too. And like really making time to kind of explore that to enhance your relationship to food and everything is really important as well.
Yeah. One thing I did want to add too, because I just remembered a big reason that I started, because I used to literally eat the same thing every single day. And I still am someone who I'm so busy. Like I don't have more than 5 minutes to make a meal. So a lot of the food videos and stuff I post are like my meal prep for the week. And then I just portion it out into bowls. But even if you are tracking macros and you kind of want to transition more to intuitive eating, which is listening to your body, I realized I was just going through the motions and I was like eating the same thing every day. And so I started just asking myself before I like had a meal, like, what do I really want right now? Like, what is my body asking for? And that is a really, really good way to like, I use the same chicken or rice or whatever that is in my fridge, but you can pair it with different sauces or seasonings or whatever. And that's a really helpful tip for those people who kind of want to transition to intuitive eating is instead of like, sitting down and having the same thing for breakfast. I was like, oh, like I don't want the same bowl of oatmeal. I want like an omelet and toast. Like, and you can make that with the same macros. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the other thing I will say when it comes to food is just meal prep. Like make a ton of chicken, prep a couple like carb sources, whatever, protein sources, and then you can pair it with a different like sauce or seasoning. And so a lot of people are like, oh my God, you have these crazy, like you cook so much or whatever. I'm like, I probably spend a total of like 30 minutes meal prepping because I'll just make stuff while I'll make a ton of chicken while I'm making
focus
chicken
on the
for one meal.
ingredients. That's what we're big on is like look at it in terms of ingredients and then how you can combine it together.
Yeah.
Like I always joke with clients, like if you actually saw how I put my meals together, you'd be like, you don't really cook, you just throw a bunch of things in a bowl. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I do.
Yep. And it will never fail you, but you just kind of learn how to be efficient with things. And like, just, I encourage you to try to like have a little bit more fun with your food and with everything. Cause I think that's a journey both Melissa and myself have been on for the past years. Like whether it's with, tracking your macros or weight training, a lot of women, and I'm not saying I don't enjoy it, but I think I started tracking my macros and weight training because I was like, this is going to help me achieve the result that, again, like we said, is going to help me feel the way that I want to feel. And it's not the only way, right? Again, like you should resistance train. I think everyone should track macros for a period of time, but they're tools. And what's the point if you're not having fun and embodying the life and the feelings that you want to experience at the end along the way, right? The switch is never going to flip where you're like, okay, now I'm ready to like be more free and have fun. So have fun with your food, have fun with your exercise, like try different things. That's something that I wish I had done a lot sooner, but that's kind of been my journey for the past year is just like learning how to balance it all, right? And yes, maintain the body that like I worked really, really hard for, and that is super healthy, and that has balanced hormones and a functioning thyroid and all those things that like weren't before. But also like genuinely just loving the way that I'm living too. So have fun with your food and have fun with your drink.
Well, I love all of that, and I appreciate you guys sharing it. And I want to be respectful of your time. And we always end our episodes with a little lightning round, which I want to make sure we get to because I think it'll be fun to do with both of you. And they're just fitness related questions, food related questions. Maybe both of those topics we'll cover or totally random stuff too. So that said, here's how I want to do this. I'm going to ask you both the same question and we can just jump back and forth like we have been. So keeping on the food theme, let's do this as our first one. If you could each only eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Mine is definitely pasta.
I do like a food group.
Sure.
Breakfast food.
Yeah. That's
like pancakes and eggs and bacon.
I'm with you there. I could literally eat that. I can eat, like, I'm a breakfast for dinner kind of person all day long.
Oh yeah, that was me last night. I had some French toast. It was fire.
I eat French toast almost every single day. And I get a
It's
little
so
extra
easy.
protein that way too. I always tell clients that. They're like, why do you eat so much French toast? I'm like, you can dip your egg in it and then you get a little more that way. So it's very efficient in my world.
Yes, we're on the same page.
Fitness related question. If you could only do one exercise, like one movement for the rest of your life, like a lift or something, whatever you want to pick, what would it be?
Lateral raises. Oh. Melissa said hip thrust. I said lateral raises.
All right. So, we're different. Upper, lower body. Okay.
Yep. I want the glutes. I hate setting up for hip thrust, Melissa.
It's such a process.
If you had my gym, I swear you wouldn't hate it.
Okay.
There's more space. There's like not a ton of people around. Like I feel like in your gym, at least that you've taken me to, I get like a little anxious with all the people around and I'm like, is there a barbell for me? Is there room for me? But like the gym I go to here in San Diego, it's a real quiet powerlifting gym. And I just go in there and like, pop, 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 do my thing. No one bothers me. So
a concept.
Favorite book?
Ooh. This is hard, so I'm just going to pick the first one that came to me. Okay. It's going to be Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Ooh, that is a good one. And I remember when you read that, it was like groundbreaking for you. Mine is How to Do the Work. I really liked that one.
It's a great book.
I actually think I'm going to reread it. I was just unpacking all of my books moving and I was like, oh, I forgot about that book. And that literally changed my life. I read it when I was like going through a breakup and I was having a really hard time. And now that I'm like in a very different place, I want to reread it again, but very good book.
So I meant to bring this up earlier and we didn't get to it. So I'm going to ask it now. What is your guys's like number one secret or rule or principle or whatever you want to call it to maintaining your friendship and your flourishing business at the same time?
I think it always, like in any relationship, it comes down to communication for sure. And obviously like Melissa and I, like maintaining our friendship, we're literally on calls like this or like on WhatsApp,
right?
All day, every day. So I do think we could do a better job of like staying in touch and just like vibing outside of that. But like in our just meetings, us two, we like catch up on life and all of that stuff. But we both have gotten so good at like if something rubs us the wrong way or if we are struggling with something or upset by something or whatever, like just communicating that and also like not doing so in an accusing way. Like we always create a safe space for each other. And that's one of the many things that I value so much about Melissa and I think it's something that a lot of us do need to do a lot of work on is just creating that safe space. And Melissa always has. And so it makes it very easy for me to go to her if I'm struggling with something, or if I'm upset by something or whatever. And just in running a business and like we are two very different individuals, I would say like we've never like actually fought. Have we? No. Because like we're both really good about just hearing each other out and communicating.
Yeah. I think when you're an effective communicator, you don't even get close to like quote unquote fighting. Lexi and I did a lot of personal development independently and together during like before we launched Alignment and then right at the beginning. And, you know, we're individuals who are committed to doing the work and always improving ourselves. So it's only improved from there. And I feel the same way. Like Lexi knows me in a way that no one else knows me. And I think I totally agree. Like it's the safe space because what is most important to me is I don't want to have to filter myself around people. Like I just want to be my true self. I don't want to have to worry about what you're thinking. I don't want to have to place these judgments on myself. Like Lexi and I are very, very different, but we balance each other out very well. And each one of us wants for the other one to be their authentic selves, to literally live in alignment. Right. And so we're never going to be like judgmental toward the other one or angry or frustrated or any of those other just like low vibe emotions. Like she lets me be me. I let her be her and we work together very well. And The last thing I'll say is I think we both recognize that we probably are the anomaly of best friend business partners, but it's not just because, it's because we've done a lot of work, again, on ourselves to effectively communicate.
It makes me think of the word again that we've been saying a lot throughout this. It's intentional. And you both take responsibility. And I mean, hey, like how easy has it been for us to flow through this? I even said right before we hit record, I wasn't going to be able to see both of you at the same time. And it was such an easy flowing conversation. And like over an hour has gone by and I could literally talk to you guys for probably 3 more. So it's very well articulated throughout conversations like this. And I really admire that. As somebody who is just now starting to grow a team, it's been top of mind. Like I was thinking about it as we were going through this conversation. So a ton of kudos to you guys for taking the time to do that, because again, like Lexi just mentioned, this isn't any relationship and there's so much to learn with that too. Even like the client coach relationship as well.
Yeah, no, it truly is any relationship. And like, I guess like just the advice is, if a relationship is important to you, like do your best to create that safe space. Always see the other person's point of view. I think so often we just see things through our lens, right? Like I'm like a very logic, what is that, left brain person, and Melissa is so much more, and you guys probably even listening to this can tell, like flowy and like up in the clouds, you know, like in the best way. And like she calms me down so much, but like I'm sure experience and perceive things very differently. And so just try to see things from other people's point of view. If you love them, don't try to mold them to who you are. Like let them be them and let them flourish. And I guess the way I see it as a business owner is, if we're both flourishing, even like in as 2 totally different people, like, and we're both our strongest selves, like that combined is so much better than trying to pull someone down or up or wherever to where you are. So
totally. Well, with that, I'm going to let you guys go and also say that we have to have you back on, because there are literally 100 other topics that I could think of for us to talk about. So this won't be the first and last time that we have you on the Fix. But before we totally let you leave, I need to know where we can stay connected with you guys. And we'll link all of this down in the show notes so that our listeners can follow you, consume all your great content, maybe steal a couple recipes while they're at it, and all that good stuff. So where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can follow Alignment on Instagram. It's at Alignment Athletics. You can follow me on Instagram. My handle is at MelissaJane_fit. And then Lex.
And I am at Lexi_DYoung. Our website is alignmentathletics.co. Podcast, The Alignment Show. Krysta was on there. Go listen to our episode.
Yes.
We need to have you on again too. I honestly feel like we could just do a ongoing,
right?
Like, what would that be? Series of
totally
series.
Should.
The Alignment Show plus Krysta.
Love it.
Fix.
Totally your fave girly pops.
Yeah.
Yes. So good.
A whole new show.
Well, I love you both. I appreciate your energy and everything you shared today. And I'm really, really just so grateful for all of our mutual friends that have connected us over the course of the last couple of months. And that's one of the things I say this to all of my guests. And I've really been feeling this after having done a period of like 6 to 8 weeks, like probably close to 2 months of only solo episodes. I've just gotten back into the groove of having guests, and it just re-energizes me every single time. For as much as I don't mind talking, as you guys know, and hosting podcasts, that's pretty much a requirement, right? And something that you should enjoy doing. It's just great to be able to have other people to bounce these ideas off of and everything. And you guys are amazing. And I am so excited to call you friends and returning guests in the very near future. So thank you so much for your time. And for all of our Fix listeners out there, you guys know the deal. If you got even 1 minute, and I'm sure there's way more than that, of great information and tips and actual steps that you can take to improve your health and wellness, please share this. Share it with somebody else who might benefit from it too. And wherever you guys are listening from, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. We will catch you next time. Thanks, ladies.